Okay, guys, so I thought we'd spend this morning talking a little bit about what you actually do. How do you actually do this work? Anyone here thinking of actually becoming a hypnotherapist and doing this work as a, paid for, living, make lots of money, make people happy type thing? Is that all? Oh, come on, don't be shy now. Looks like some of you guys need a little bit of therapist to find out whether or not you're really ready to go for this. Say again? Exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about how to set up your hypnotherapy practice and then how to set up the first session, purely because I remember when I first did my first session, I was freaking out. I had no idea what to expect. He didn't have any idea what to expect. We were both sitting there going like, what's going on next, right? I had no sense of what to do or steps to get it through. I knew what to do, but I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to get into that position. And have you noticed that when you're not quite sure about what you're doing, then even just starting it becomes like this massive, epic journey, because you don't even know what the starting point is, right? So the first thing I want to think about is how you set up your hypnotherapy practice. My recommendation is that you don't do the practice in your home, although if for cost reasons, it's a good place to do. If you can do, you want to create a separate space that people go to that's dedicated to the work that you do. And the reason for it is just because it doesn't feel like someone's coming to your home, which is kind of a strange territorial thing. Coming to someone's office is like a neutral thing that they go to. So I know some very successful hypnotherapists who have converted the garage and turned the garage into an office, and that works great for them. That's what you do? Perfect. I know some hypnotherapists who go into a doctor's office or dental office and rent a space there. I used to practice in a physiotherapy office, which is great because it's great complementary skills. And that's actually a very useful thing because you can get referrals from the other people and vice versa. It's a very nice place to be. Now, you want to make sure that your office looks professional. It's all about, remember, we're all about creating an atmosphere, right? If the atmosphere is right, then people will be in the perfect condition and they'll just slip into trance. If it's wrong, then people are going like, I don't know, is this really right for me? Right? So here's some classic mistakes that I've made. Space well music, even if you love it, is great as long as the clientele that you are targeting is of that kind of thing. If you're looking, for example, after corporate clients, space well music is not the way to go. Okay? And that kind of comes up to the whole music in general thing. Music can work great as an adjunct to a session, but you don't know what bugs one individual and what another individual loves. So my preference is to not use any, because that way, you don't really need it, because you're good hypnotists, and why add anything extra? I'll come to in a second. Why anything extra? Now, sure, it can add a quality, and if your client expresses a particular desire for some little piece of music, by all means, put it on, because then you know it's going to work and it's just going to add value to the session. But as a rule, I prefer not to play music, because you never know if it's really going to annoy someone, and then end up having all their attention on the music they don't like, rather than you. Does that kind of make sense? Over here?
So in the setting of actually giving the session, I can see where you would be hesitant to use music, especially where, unless you know what the client likes. But in the setting of the waiting room, have you found any value to certain types of music to get people in the right point of view? I mean, because you look at doctors' dentist office, it traditionally have, the elevator to hell music going in the background.
Right. I hate elevator music. It just winds me up
it's the fork on sheet metal kind of reaction.
Someone might have to do a regression on me because maybe I got attacked by an elevator because the music really winds me up.
Well, and as a child, I always identified that music with going to the dentist. So even riding the elevators made me feel uncomfortable. So.
Well, it's like a friend of mine is a musician who said the whole elevator music thing is basically music with all the musical bits taken out.
Yes.
Right. But that bit aside, if you want to do it, fine. By all means, it's so important. I prefer to start the process of getting the client ready for the session the minute they walk into the office. So the way I do it is, well, I was in a physiotherapy clinic, so it's kind of there's just noise of people walking around and stuff like that. But the way I would do it is set up certificates. You guys are all going to, assuming you pass, excuse me, you're going to get a big, bold, and very impressive looking certificate. It looks very nice. I wish I had one. But I can't take the program because I can't certify myself, and that's terrible. I have an issue about that. But you put certificates up so people go, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. You now have like a little folder maybe with your testimonials lying on the table. So they sit there looking bored, rather than flicking through a magazine of half-naked people. They look through this thing and see little newspaper articles, you did in the local press, and little stories about you helping handicapped kids, going to trance and never come back, and testimonials of all the clients that have come and seen you and how great their life is now. So you're going with this? So you always begin to build expectations at this point, and it's all looking very, very kind of clean and professional, no wild colors. It's an inviting space, but not one which says, okay, this is a particular, if you like, genre, unless, and this is the important thing, you're actually going after a specific type of person. For example, if you're going into the sort of New Age mystic realm, by all means, start playing sort of Indian sitar music or space well music and burn incense and put pictures of dolphins diving to space up, because they love that. That's part of your field, right? So people come there will feel at home. But if you're looking for a general practice, then believe me, having pictures of whales flying into space is not the best way of showing your credentials. Do you see what I mean? It's all about the perception that the client has in you before they even meet you. So by all means use music, and I won't get too hung about it in terms of the waiting room area. I'm just thinking about what is the experience someone has as they're waiting to come and see you, right? That's the key thing you're thinking about. And the ideas you want to create is that you know what you're doing, you can help them, and it's for you, it's like it's a straightforward thing. All they have to do is put themselves in your hands, and it's all going to work out. That's the perception you're trying to create. You do that with your certificates on the walls. You do that with testimonial letters that they can pick up and read. You do that with articles that you've clipped out and maybe framed up on the wall or put into a little folder that they can flick through. If you've written books about hypnosis or about the mind, get those books with your name printed on it and lay them out on the table so people can flick through them. It's a great way of creating the sense of, wow, this person really knows who they are. They're a published author, right? It's just creating that perception that helps you end up doing the work that you're doing. Does that make sense? Now, whilst they're waiting, does anyone know what I mean by a pre-talk? A pre-talk is basically having a chat. It can be somewhere 5 minutes. It could be up to half an hour, where you explain to people what hypnosis is, what it isn't, and what they can expect out of a session, so that they don't end up going like, okay, I feel great, but I wasn't really hypnotized because I heard every word you said, and you know what I mean? Those kind of doubts could actually undo all the good work you've done if they go away thinking nothing's worked. It ends up becoming what's called a nocebo. They becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-suggestion to undo all the work you did. So you've got to create their expectations. Sometimes I'll do a 5-minute, nowadays just a 5-minute pre-talk, but it's probably worthwhile getting used to like a nice long 20 minutes, 30 minutes pre-talk to just really get into them, and particularly because you're a conversational hypnotist now. Your pre-talk is actually your induction. It's actually setting up all the stuff you want to do. And this is where you guys really have a huge advantage over, shall we say, regular hypnotherapy. Because, and this is what I used to do. I used to set it up so that most of my work got done before I actually even said sit down in the chair and begin the whole process of going into trance. Because where's the defense mechanism? It's not there yet because we haven't started. Does that make sense? I recommend if you do pre-talk, you've got some information in here, what hypnosis is and what it isn't. You've got the secrets of hypnosis revealed, in which case you can just listen through that, and there's lots and lots of information in there you can tease out and turn into a pre-talk. I recommend that you start off by doing your own pre-talk live and in person, just to get used to it and understand your own field, right? Now, once you get used to that, you may want to just videotape it and have one of these little, little video player things in the lobby whilst they're waiting for you, which they can watch as you're doing another session, and they can come in like half an hour early. They'll watch this video. When they finish watching the video, you'll just about be finishing your session, and then you can switch people pretty quickly that way. Does that make sense? If you do that, chain the machine down. It's serious. Chain the machine down, because people will walk off with it otherwise, and it's really annoying having to shell out $200 every week because some bastard is sitting at home watching your DVDs, right? You're going to get that sense of like the general atmosphere you're creating. As a rule, you want to ask people to come in wearing loose-fitting clothing. It's particularly important if a lady books a session, not the worst thing, a big distraction can be a girl who has a very short dress, not just for the male therapist, it's also just for pure modesty. In other words, if she's sitting there with a tiny little dress, her attention will be on maintaining, decency, and where is her attention not? Where you want it to be, right? So advise people to come in loose-fitting clothing, baggy clothes or something like that. If they don't, it's probably worth having a little blanket or something ready so you can wrap up their legs and you can tell them, it's sometimes body temperature changes, so this is probably better now rather than once you're in trance. And that becomes like an unconscious kind of safety blanket for them, because now they realize they don't even have to think about their skirt anymore. They can go vegging out in the chair like this, and it's all good, right? So these are just little logistical things. It doesn't mean you can't do trance with someone wearing next to nothing, totally trying to keep themselves together. You can. It's just, why not put things in your favor? Why not stack the deck in your favor? Does that make sense? Yeah, the last thing really is, we talked about if someone has difficulty, can we have a microphone here? If someone has difficulty emerging because they're coming back too quickly in the sense like they've been too deep, it's useful to have a water fountain and maybe like a couple of snacks nearby, so that when someone is done, I used to like walking them out back into the lobby, sitting them down with a glass of water and saying, just sit there and drink this for a bit as you get yourself, back together, back to the reality type thing, so that before they left, they've done something more than just the externalization process. That way, you're just covering all the angles. You're just adding a few extra pieces along the way. Plus, drinking water is good for you anyway, so why not? Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be more comfortable to do hypnosis lying, so that the client would lie on the bed?
It might be more comfortable for them, and, well, a couple of things. One thing is, it may actually be emotionally uncomfortable, kind of lying down with a stranger, for some people. So the better, my preference, if you're going to go down that road, is one of those easy boy armchairs where they can kind of kick back like this, because it feels more like you're actually sitting down rather than lying prone, because it has other connotations. And, by all means, if they like it, they can do that. Ultimately, you can still do it sitting up, and I like sitting up. I actually use chairs, pretty much what you have here in my office. No fancy anything, seriously. And part of the reason for that is because I do we now do very dynamic trances. We want their interaction, right? So what these chairs do, they need to have enough, if you like, presence to not fall off it. And this is true, they need to have enough presence to not fall off it, which means they have enough presence to interact with me. If they're lying down, and this happens to me, I know you guys do self-hypnosis lying down, I start feeling so good, I think, screw the self-hypnosis, I'm having a nap. It's true, right? And not all clients will be this way, but it's a danger that you're setting yourself up for. So if you'll try it out, by all means do so. It might really work well for you. It just wasn't just my approach. Can we have something for Susan?
What if the trance induction that you're doing, which suppose it involves moving them, touching them on the shoulder and moving them like I've seen you do many times, which for me is a wonderful trance induction. But what if they're getting sick to their stomach, or what if they don't like it?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I had a wonderful partner. Connie told me, that's very annoying to me. I said, okay, let's do something else. But I can see that one of my clients coming into me going, okay, if this is the way it's done, I guess I got to do this. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Well, that's a great point. The only thing I can say to that is, number one, I always ask permission to touch them, shoulder, forehead, arm, that sort of thing. Okay, that's absolutely appropriate. I still think touch is worth the risk, and it's a risk you take, right? It's still worth the risk. And at that point, you just have to be observant. If there's something like, it's all going well, but there's something like a little tension or something like that, you say, well, what's happening now? And they'll go, oh, nothing. Well, what's that? It seems like there's a little tension or there's something going on. Oh, I feel a little queasy from you, like, stirring me around like I'm a rowboat. At which point you go, you use your keen intellect to realize that this would be the time to stop, right? And that's the only thing you can do. I think it's worth the risk that happening, because I think it's relatively minor. Given the extra benefits you get, But that's a personal opinion, and you can choose whatever way you want to do it, really.
I have another question, and that is, what about the person you're using mind-bending language on, and they just say, wait a minute, stop this. This is crazy. You know, I don't want to go here.
Thank you. That's a great question. First of all, remember that if you're doing official hypnotherapy rather than coaching or anything else, you have much more leeway. In fact, people expect you to be weird. They get disappointed, and I honestly think I've seen clients get disappointed to see me not wearing a top hat, big cape, and swinging a pocket watch. It's like, all right, if you're going to do like dress-up version, I'll do that, but it's not how we do it nowadays, right? So you do have much more leeway as a hypnotherapist because they think, well, this person knows what they're doing, so I guess if he's being weird, it must be it's like, I don't know if there's a TV magician in Britain, you may have him here as well, called Darren Brown. It's kind of cool. He blends just magic tricks with, you know, suggestion. So it makes it look like he's doing all this funky stuff with suggestion, but really it's kind of magic, sort of thing. And you know, he does this great thing because he has these language patterns which are so kind of obvious. You see them, and everyone goes, "You see, that's where he did it. You see, I could hear it." You know. In reality, he's actually just done a little magic trick to, you know, get something they've written down and read it, or I don't know what it is. But it looks like this really convoluted language pattern is what did the work. And everyone's going like, that's it, that's the bit where it's happening. So actually sometimes it can work in your favor. Now, beyond that scope, remember that mind-bending language isn't about being weird. It's about shifting attention. And, you know, hopefully you realize that I've been using a lot of it with you guys in a way that is just very gentle, so you haven't even noticed it happening because it's just shifting your attention before the problem even arises. So, going back to what some of you guys discovered during the mind-bending language part of the course, you don't have to be clever, you don't have to be strange with it, you just have to shift your attention, and sometimes it's the smallest thing that you do that gets the result. Classic example just here with Scott. I could have gone into all this convoluted, you know, anxiety, anxious to start feeling good and all that sort of stuff, and it's like spinning away and throwing up from the rowboat and all the rest of it. But what do? Just ask someone else to have the experience that he needs, and suddenly he had the catharsis. Isn't that strange? But that was a mind-bending loop. Does that answer your question? Do you see where I'm coming with this? So you have more scope, and you can do it much more gently, so they don't even realize it's happening. As far as this is why I love mind-bending language. I used to like ask them about the problem, and they thought we're still talking about the problem to just find out what's going on. But in the meantime, I'd be just throwing these things in, and sometimes it worked great, and this is particularly good for practice. Sometimes it would work so great, it'd blow up that entire problem, at which point I would be a genius. They go, how do you do that? And I was like, that's why you pay me the big bucks, right? On the other side, sometimes it wouldn't work, in which case I was just asking them about the problem so I could find out more to do actually do my work. Because they don't know what you're doing anyway, so you may as well throw it in there during the questioning phase at the beginning and see what happens, right? Go ahead.
I wanted to say something about the first question.
Sure.
I always tell my clients when they come in with a pre-talk that it's their process and they are the most important one there. So if there's something they don't like doing or something that is not right for them, they just tell me when they're into trance. I can just give them some kind of suggestion that they can always tell me what they don't like because they're the most important person. And
you see, all this stuff comes back to H+. If you're coming from H+, this stuff is natural to come through, and people give much more leeway in the weird stuff you can do as well. Gloria first, and then up front for Helen.
Hello.
There you go. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Nothing.
You're good.
All right. I am talking about the second question of Susan, and I wasn't even doing mind-bending language. I was just doing ordinary blitz, and the person actually was very adamant into H-.
The thing what?
The client was very adamant into stressing H-.
Okay. Oh, they were adamant about stressing their H-. Well, of course.
And their H- is, I don't think this is working for me.
Of course.
No, I don't think so. I don't think this is working for me.
This is great. What you just described is described. If you start with a blitz, right, you just described the threshold which triggers you starting to go into mind-bending language.
No, I didn't use any mind-bending language.
I'm saying right now, you're doing the blitz, the response you got, what you call H-, is your cue, it's your sign that you need to switch to mind-bending language. That's when you start doing mind-bending language. That's why they're in that order. So when someone says, I don't think this is working for me, you turn around and say, how do you know? And you get some information like, because I feel this. Well, beyond feeling that, what are you paying attention to? You're now into your mind-bending loops, and they've given you the crossover point. That's the point at which the blitz becomes pattern number 2. That's it.
Okay, I'll continue from there. I was doing H plus in one hand and H minus on the other hand on the last exercise yesterday afternoon, and I was super fortunate enough to partner with Jason, who is really a pro. I really give my thanks. And he started me right from the start with mind-bending language all the way through until the last sentence. That was the integration. Went home flying sky high.
Great. Seriously, it's great. Yeah. That's how you can combine all this stuff. It's just, now you get to have choice in how you do this, and that's the cool thing, right? One here and then over here. So go here.
Before I came here, a very good friend of mine said, why do you want to go get trained as a hypnotherapist? That's crazy. I mean, she had all these negative associations to hypnotherapy.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you're crazy for thinking that, you know? It's like I could use it in my everyday life. I could do this. So I got in kind of a defensive mode. As opposed to doing that, how do you deal with somebody that's got so much negative associations towards hypnotherapy?
Well, 2 things. One, that's what magic moments are for. They're just designed to pull people out of a reality to the point where, you remember, if you switch their state, then all the negative associations disappear, and suddenly they'll look at it with fresh eyes. So I would typically do like a magic moment about attention, then do the whole reframing about stage hypnosis, being like a magician doing an illusion. So what you think is going on. Typically people don't reject hypnotherapy, but to hypnosis, because in a stage hypnotist, they're afraid of the whole power angle, right? So then I reframe the idea of what stage hypnosis is. People actually volunteer to act like idiots because they like the lack of responsibility, and going down the whole, it's an illusion, just like a magician has an illusion. And maybe finish up with a second magic moment, and then give them a little demonstration of the power of the mind in action, like the pendulum maybe, or like the whole, the pointing thing, and they can go further when their mind's engaged, etc. And once they've had actual experience of using their mind to empower themselves, even a small amount, people, usually, in my experience, usually go, wow, that's amazing, tell me more. So the defensiveness, as a rule of thumb, is typically just because they've gone to see a poor, shall we say, stage hypnotist who has created poor frames, and they're afraid of that. So it's just a question of reframing that, adding magic moments so they have some experience in a better sense, and then going from there. Plus, remember, just think about it in terms of hypnotherapy practice. They won't come to your practice anyway, so you can focus on the people that do, and they're already sold on the idea in the first place. Does that make sense? So this is more for social setting, but if you actually have a hypnotherapy practice, the fact that they're in the room means they're believing it, otherwise they wouldn't be there. So your work is already done for you at that point.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are psychologists, psychiatrists, that, may not necessarily be too educated about hypnotherapy or have much interest. But I feel like if I can educate them, then maybe I can get referrals from them.
That's what magic moments are about. That's exactly what magic moments are about. I would do like a magic moment, quick hypnotic demo, a little thing about force for good, and you're done. 10 minutes, and these guys will be going, oh, it's amazing. Especially if you give them a little self-hypnosis experience. Go ahead.
What about lighting?
Lighting? Okay, lighting's a good one. Technically, again, it doesn't really matter, but I like to have like a dimmer switch that you can go and create that sort of more intimate atmosphere. When they walk in, it should be reasonably bright. They sit down, you dim the switch. It's kind of like an indirect induction, and I think it's great. Don't turn the lights off because that's weird. But if you don't have a dimmer switch in the room, like many offices don't, the light's on, no big deal. Okay, one more question, and we'll move on. Go ahead.
What is your personal opinion if a person who is a hypnotherapist is also quite known as a stage hypnotist?
I have no problem with it. As long as he's ethical, I have absolutely no problem with it. It's a great marketing ploy, seriously. If you want to have a full practice, do stage hypnosis shows in a certain area, once a month, and you'll fill your practice because everyone who comes to see your show will come or send someone to come and go to your practice. It's a phenomenal marketing tool.
Will it trivialize my hypnotherapy?
Only in the eyes of other hypnotists. Seriously. If anything, it puts you up as a rock star god of mental powers for the average person, and they get totally blown away by it, and they think it's an amazing thing, right? The stage hypnosis show, if done well, is one big, fat, magic moment. So seriously, the perception of the public of your practice will be 10 times higher if you do a stage hypnosis show than if you're just a regular hypnotherapist. Guaranteed. If you do it with H+ and respect, etc. 10 times higher. Because they will totally be blown away by all the things that can happen. You know, I mean, I'm not saying you guys have to go out and become stage hypnotists, etc. But I'm telling you, this is in my experience, the fact. You know? It's sometimes annoying because you sit there and you do great work, and a stage hypnotist comes along and does a little demo, and everyone's going, oh, this guy's great, it's amazing, he's got these powers, but, you know, I just blew out phobias and this and that, and this guy made a guy act like a chicken. How the hell, you know? But that's what people perceive. So it's not a question of you know, what's right and wrong. It's just, in my experience, that ends up happening.
Because the hypnotist teacher said word for word every single thing that you said, but I thought that was just a kind of showmanship and PR-ship, you know.
You know, you don't have to be a stage hypnotist. I've never done a stage hypnosis show in my life, and I've done pretty well for myself. But I do recognize that if you do stage hypnosis shows in an area that you work in, so you don't go away and come back because that's different, but in the area that you work in, it will fill your practice if you make sure that your cards and details and stuff like that handed out at the end of each show, because it fascinates people, and the respect they have for your practice actually, for most people, elevates. Not for everyone. It's, you know, the world's got full of different people. This is my experience. So let's talk very quickly about how you actually run your very first session. Will that be interesting? You've set it all up. You've got all the parameters and stuff ready. You've done the whole, you know, someone's called you, and on the telephone you do the whole H+, and you do the telephone script with you know, as a normal person talking to a normal person on the phone rather than the... And so, you know, you're just having a chat to them. Now, the first moment they come into your office, you need to start running your show, if you like, your therapy stuff. Actually, technically, it's the minute you get on the phone with them, you want to start setting the expectation that this stuff's going to work great. As a rule, I would recommend, especially for the men, but actually for the women as well, that you have a cheap video recorder in the room to record your sessions. You can apparently pick some stuff up in sort of stores here for like $60, something like the ones for if you know, videotaping your baby whilst asleep and making sure it's okay. And they'll take low quality recordings for, I don't know, $60 or $90, something like that. You can put on several hours on these things and then put them digitally onto a computer or burn them onto a disk. And these things are really worthwhile getting for the simple reason that you want to be able to document what you were doing. In trance, all kinds of things can happen, including kinesthetic hallucinations. So you don't want to have someone coming in with some kind of problem and then accidentally hallucinating whilst in trance, or that you may have touched them somewhere you haven't, and then you get in a huge amount of trouble, and you have no way of proving that you didn't do what they said that you did, right? Where if you have just a simple video camera that just looks across both of you, shows clearly you're here, that person's there, it shows where your hands are at all times, and it's like, okay, this person's clearly having a different experience than what they thought about having. It just saves you in terms of any potential liabilities. And this is particularly important here in the US, where people are a little bit more litigious than in the rest of the world. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, the beauty of these cameras is, first of all, they're pretty cheap. Secondly, you can just back them all up, after after a week's work. You can put them all and burn them all onto one DVD. That DVD goes in a folder together with your case notes, and it takes no space at all to store it. It really takes no space at all. It lasts, many years, and it just keeps you safe in terms of what might come your way. Does that make sense to you guys? Go ahead, Mark.
Camera called a flip cam you get for like less than $100. It records an hour, plug it into your USB, and your computer downloads it, and you can do stuff with
There you go. Just check out the internet. Just check out different not hardware stores, technology type stores. Ask them for a camera under $100. Just bear in mind, the quality of the recording is irrelevant. As long as you can make out what you're doing at all times, that's okay. That's enough. So this is not to sell DVDs or to show how cool your filmmaking skills are. This is purely to show what were you doing, and did you touch that person in a way that maybe shouldn't have done, or you say something you shouldn't have said, and that's it. Can we have a microphone up here, please? So we'll start over here, and then next one is with Philip. Go ahead.
Do you know if there's a source book where we can get like intake forms and?
Yeah, in the back of your manual.
Oh.
We'll come on to that.
I think it's a really great idea to use videos to see how I'm doing.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Because you can, by seeing myself, I can, look at places where I may stumble.
I totally agree with that. The best thing to do is watch the sessions where you don't think you did a good job, and you can see yourself and go, oh, here's where I should have changed it. So this is very, very true. Susan, and then Adam.
I do videotape some of my sessions for a mentoring purpose. I've been disappointed with the audio quality because the camera's way over here, I'm here, the agent's here, and sometimes it doesn't pick up very well.
Well, if you want to resolve that very simply, buy yourself a cheap MP3 player. A lot of them now have a voice thing built in. And then just record that, so you now have two streams. You've got the video stream from one, you've got the audio from the MP3 player. You don't have to initially get the two stick together, it's just that you have both files. It takes a tiny little file, and then if there's a problem, you have both backing it up. Just remember, if you're recording people, different states, different countries have different laws. So the best thing is to make it very obvious that you're doing it, because if the other person sees you and knows what you're doing, then that's basically consent already there. If it's kind of hidden and it's like a little magic button you click without them seeing, then you may well end up breaking the law in certain states. So you've got to check out what your local laws are about that sort of thing. And my opinion is just be upfront. If you're kind of like pretty straightforward about it, they'll go, yeah, it's just record keeping, don't worry about it. Go ahead, Adam, and then can someone bring a microphone up there?
Any ideas on how to, I'm sure some people might feel a little self-conscious about being filmed during a session with personal information they're sharing. Is there any way to sort of make them feel more at ease with that? Just exactly what I said right now, which is basically, this is a video just for record keeping purposes. No one's really going to see it. This is just something we do. We take the intake sheet, we have the video, and that just gives clean records, as part of a good practice management system or something like that. I've never had a problem with it. Seriously, clients really just accept it. If you just emphasize the fact that this is purely for record keeping, no one sees it, and it's just good practice management, I'll go, fair enough. Because they don't know what a hypnotherapy practice runs like. They don't know what people normally do. So they'll just accept it. And if they say, oh, I went to this other hypnotherapist and he didn't do that, I says, well, I can't comment how other people run their practice. This is just good practice in this field, and this is why we do it. Okay.
Go ahead.
You can always add permission to videotape on your intake form as well.
Yeah.
So when they sign it, it's part of the consent that they may or may not be videotaped.
That's a nice point.
So that way you've already got consent for it, and there's no legal liability beyond that.
I actually didn't get regress because when I did rush it, it took him a while to come back,
Sure.
so I never went through the process myself. I feel a little bit foggy. Could you just give me some,
Sure.
condense it so I can hold it in my mind?
Absolutely. It's actually, you have all the steps in this manual here.
I know,
Let me just
I've
take
gone
you through
over
them.
and over it.
Sure. I'll just take you through them here so that when you look at it, you actually understand what you're doing as you look at the manual, because this is a good resource for you. I'm just looking at the steps here. I think it's exercise 5 on page 56. So, for shame. Step 1 is just induce trance, boilerplates, all that sort of stuff. You know that's easy, right? Step 2 is get a positive emotion. Like, in this case, we want to do something like a charming memory, like the sense of wonder, the sense of joy, the playful sense of fun, something like that, right? Then you regress back on it a few times, 2 or 3 times. Like, go back, maybe they're 17, then they're 13, now they're about 8. So just bounce back a few times, just to get used to the process of bouncing back. On each bounce back, you orient them. So you bounce back, what do you see, what do you sense? You know, are you inside or you outside? And they go, yeah, you know, I'm with my friends, I'm playing pool, it's a great time. Okay, travel back, 3, 2, 1. Are you inside, outside? You know, what do you see, what do you sense? That sort of stuff. Okay, I'm 12 years old, I'm in a swimming pool, bounce back again. So you're basically bouncing back and orienting at each stage. Make sense? No. Right now we haven't even got to the proper regression. We're just traveling backwards in time through various memories. Okay? So you got the emotion, you bounce back to one event, you orient, bounce back to another event, reorient, another event, orient, just so you can travel through time and know you can do it. Right? The next thing is, once you're at an event somewhere in the, shall we say, under 10-year range, once you've got an event run in the under 10-year range, then you're going to basically say, get the person to be the adult. So 1, 2, 3, talk to the adult now. Here's adult James, right? You know, how was that event? Great. Now, then you coach the adult and say, there's a moment before, so this is the dissociate back to adult, right? And in the reframing bit, you were pretty bored, but look what happened. You basically say, look, there was a time before he was like swimming in the pool, having a great time, when it was just a normal everyday thing, he was kind of a bit bored, nothing really was going on, right? And the guy says, sure. Well, what was that? When was that? Well, you know, it's half an hour before. I was at home watching TV. I didn't realize we were going to go swimming today, right? So now you've done step 3. So you're back in a memory pre-10 years old. It's a positive thing, and you know a moment before that happy memory occurred. So we do this graphically. They have a good feeling, right? They bounce back to a time they were 17. You bounce back again to a time they were 12. You bounce back again to a time they were, say, 8, right? This is the event we're going to use. So let's say that is swimming. Now you talk to the adult, and the adult tells you that now he's just doing a memory. So you're in here, then you take him out of this as the adult, talking about the memory of doing this, and he tells you, well, right about here, 30 minutes before, there was a point where I was just bored. I didn't know I was going to go swimming, right? Now you tell the adult, well, you know, it's cool because if this little kid here, so little mini-me here, doesn't know that in half an hour he's going to have this wonderful time, right? No, he doesn't. Well, let's go surprise him. 3, 2, 1, you're a little mini-me, you're watching TV, it's all boring, and look what's just happened there. Your mum's come home, you're going to the cinema, you know, you're going to the swimming pool, all your friends are there, you're having a great time. 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, back to the adult. How was that? That's great. Did you enjoy that? Sure. Got it so far? Not yet. It'll come. So now what we just described was we create a moment without positive emotion with adults. That was this. So step 4 is finding this point here, right? That's step 4 in your manual, just so you know what you're doing. Step 5 is explain the loop, boring to exciting, which means explaining to him that you're going to step in and go this way, so this little kid's going to get surprised by how good he feels, right? That's step 5. Step 6 is doing the loop. He steps in, you know, is bored, and suddenly gets surprised by going to the swimming pool and has a great time. Step 6. Make sense? Okay, now we get into step 7, which is you reframe the adult. So by this stage, he's gone through this experience twice, right? Once, bouncing back, so that's the first time he's experienced it. The second time, when he stepped in from boredom through the experience, so the second time he's experienced it now. So now we're back to the adult again for the second time, and we say to the adult, okay, you know, little Johnny didn't know that whilst he's feeling bored, that something so cool was about to happen, did he? No. Well, how about you tell him what's going to happen, so that he realizes he doesn't have to be bored anymore. He gets to have that sense of anticipation, so that the experience ends up being better because he gets to look forward to it. Wouldn't that be cool? Sure. Now you have a coaching chat. So this is This is basically step 7. You're explaining all this to the adult, right? You're preparing him to coach a child. So the next step is so now we're going to step 8. So now we're getting to step 8. You've explained to the adult already what's going to happen. So now the adult tells little Johnny, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be bored watching TV, and I want you to realize that something amazing is going to happen. It's going to totally change your day. You have so much fun. You have absolutely no reason to be bored, and really gets this little kid pumped up and excited, right? That's step 8. Step 9 is you just do it. Step 9, adult goes in here, little child now, anticipating good stuff, runs the whole loop, comes out, you talk to the adult, say, how was that? Adult says, it's great. Go back inside, watching TV, excitement's still building because he knows it's coming. He goes through it again, you step back outside, ask the adult, how was that? He goes, it's even better. Okay, let's do it again. Go back inside, boredom, but it's not really boring now because they're really anticipating something really cool all the way through. Come back outside, ask the adult, how was that? The adult goes, that was amazing. See how that works? You just done 3 loops, 2 or 3 loops doing this, right? So that's basically step 9. Run the cycle 2 to 5 times. Exactly. From boredom to wonder, although the boredom is now transformed into anticipation because you've done this little coaching element here, right? 2, 3, 4 times, doesn't really matter. You'll see them glowing. That's the peak. That's the key thing. So right now you're on step 9. Okay? Step 10 is very simple. Step 10 is simply get the child, come back out in front of the adult like this, and give him a big hug and say, you did great, and then reintegrate them. So bring them inside you, let them grow up inside you, 1, 2, 3, through the ages, 4, 5, 6, and all the sense of wonder that comes your way, knowing that anytime you feel bored, it's really a signal that something exciting or something wonderful is just around the corner, right? And then basically it's the same as you saw with the full regression yesterday, just with pleasant emotions rather than overcoming unpleasant ones.
So the original bouncing is going to an earlier and earlier stage of the same emotion?
Exactly.
Until
so
they
this,
pick the earliest stage.
So this is the emotion. This line here is the emotion. And you're just going through, this is them aged, 38 now. Mm-hmm. Same emotion falls back to age 17. Same emotion falls back to age 12. Same emotion falls back to age 8. So it just becomes the same emotion, this is called the affect bridge. You're following the emotion, and that tells you where the memories are.
Okay. And if they stop at one that's very intense, it doesn't have to be the earliest one, just a very intense one?
It doesn't have to be intense. All I'm looking here is somewhere around the under 10-year mark, because it's just a very early one, that's all.
So you're looking for the earliest one?
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know what? If they land on 12 and it seems like a really charming memory, by all means stick on 12. Because this is just an exercise to pep people up. This is not a therapeutic exercise yet. This is just a way of you showing to me that you can do navigating through time, that you can do the adult-child interaction, that you can run loops and set them up and run loops, and that you can integrate it afterwards. That's what I need to see from you. Because if you can do that, then you can do regression work. Because all you do is you change this to something negative, and you saw the results up here, right? It was pretty much the same thing at that point. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
In the same way, what struck me with this was that, in the process where you bring somebody up out of trance, then you take them back down.
Fractionation, yeah.
This process here seems like it's almost doing the same thing. As
yes.
You're actually bringing them each time into a deeper space by going back and forth.
Yes, exactly right. So you have 2 fractionations going on. One is on the emotion. Each time they bounce back, it ends up being more real for them because you're orienting them at each stage. And also here, each time you run the loop, it becomes more intense because you're conditioning it. So exactly right, same principle. So let's go back to the idea of why we're here, which is we're doing your first session. The client's in, what do you do with them? Right? You set your office up, your chair is there. You know, I like to work with, you've seen me work, I like to work sideways on rather than facing on, but you do whatever you want. You're about to do your first session. What the hell do you do? Any ideas? No? You've been doing this for 6 days. So the first thing you do from the moment that you meet them is you set the expectation, right? Hey, it's great to see you, it's great to meet you. You're here for, say, weight loss. That's fantastic. We see loads of people this way. You're going to love this. Come this way, right? So you just set them up to expect good things, right? The thing not to do is say, oh, you're here for what? Weight loss? Oh, let me think about this. I'm sure I learned something about this somewhere, right? Set the expectations right up front. Be nice and smooth. They come into your room, sit them down, give them a little pre-talk. This is what hypnosis is, this is what it is, and this is what you expect, this is what's not going to happen, right? Just get your video thing recording. And I like to give clients kind of a little quick magic moment before we begin, right? The quick magic moment might be something like, the attention goes, energy flows. It might be a really charming way of doing a magic moment. It's a success story, right? They're sitting there and say, you know what, you remind me of someone I saw a couple of weeks ago, and this let's say we're doing a phobia of shoes, and say like this charming lady had a phobia of shoes, really stressing her out because the sales were on. So and now she's like Imelda Marcos and has more shoes than she can count. So it's a little success story, and what it does is it's saying basically, it's like a My Friend John technique. This is where you are, and this is where you're going to be. But you're doing it in the frame of someone else's experience, and that sets an expectation again. Make sense? So success stories are great magic moments that you can just throw them away as part of the settling them down process. Or you can do the whole, attention flows, energy type thing. If you want to do it, that's fine. Okay? So right now, your clients settle down. They have a sense of anticipation, something good's going to happen. They kind of know what hypnosis is and what to expect and what not to expect, right? Now you get to do your magic. Actually, before we get to do magic, in the back of this book we have an intake form. Just as an example, you don't have to use this one, you can use anything you want. But basically you want to take them through the intake form because there's some very important information in the intake form that you want to have. And I just want to talk you through very quickly the information here, right? You want, of course, their names so you know who they are. And I don't know about you, but I have often had to check my sheet again in the middle of a session to remind me who the person is so I don't call Sarah Fiona in the middle of a hypnosis session because, that's not a great way of treating your clients. So have your intake sheet there, you know what their name is, you can check it again every now and again to make sure that you're still doing it right, and that's fine. The date of the session and date of birth are great, particularly for your marketing things, because you can then actually send them, congratulations letters, happy birthday letters, stuff like that. They then they're reminded of you, and the more they think of you, the more likely it is they'll refer people because you're in their mind. Does that make sense? Marital status, this is I don't feel strongly about this, but there is some reason to agree with the idea that if someone's been divorced, there may be some unconscious guilt going on which you may want to have a look at some point, or at least may somehow arise in the session. I don't feel particularly strongly about that, but still it's something worth kind of noting and being aware of. You want to know how they heard about you, because otherwise your marketing sucks. If you have no idea where they came from, you have no idea where you're wasting your money and what's actually working for you, right? So find out, and then that way you know what to do more of. Referrals, it's good to find out who they refer them so you can thank the referrer, and also tells you again where your business came from. Medical referrals are very important. You want to keep a doctor advised of their patient's progress when they come and see you for two reasons. One, just because that's good practice, and two, it's good marketing idea, because if the doctor is getting letters from you saying, here's what we did, here's how it worked, here's what's happening now, and he gets a few of these letters coming in through his door every couple of weeks, he's going to go, who is this person that keeps writing to me and having all these results with my patients? That's amazing. Next time someone comes in, he has no idea what to do with, he'll go, you know what, where's that hypnotist guy again? Let's go send them over there, right? Okay, this is big. Heart conditions and general, shall we say, medication, things like that. You'll be very careful with certain conditions because there's some things you can't do with them. I think the conditions, we've got them listed out somewhere. The page before that, page 72. heart condition, clinical depression, if there's pain, diabetes, epilepsy, pregnancy, and asthma, or if they've been under doctor's care generally in the last year or so, for all those times, you'll be careful, and you probably want to get a referral, okay? With a heart condition in particular, you don't want to be doing strong emotional work. Why? Because you don't want them having a stroke in the middle of your, in your office. It's serious, it's true. If someone's got a weak heart or it's got, some kind of heart condition like that, an emotional stress may well trigger off the problem, so you end up creating more problems than they came in with, and that's not a good idea, right? For things like pain, we've talked a lot about pain already. You cannot treat certain things without a medical referral. Why? Because other things might be happening, and you may end up masking the symptom, and the person may end up dead or with serious injuries as a result of it. Does that make sense? So if in doubt, get a medical referral. Diabetes is interesting purely because most of our diabetics will know pretty much how to take care of themselves, and will have either an insulin shot with them or some glucose or something like that in case they go either high or low on their sugar levels. Remember, you cannot prescribe anything. You can't tell them, why don't you just take a little glucose tablets, you'll be okay, because that's actually called practicing medicine in many countries. So if they are diabetic, you want to know about it just in case. You want to check with them that they have their gear with them, so that if something does happen, they can go ahead and self-medicate as they do anyway. Does that make sense? Pregnancy, same sort of conditions as with the heart. In pregnancy, you don't have to have strong emotional work. Why? Well, if she's in the late stages of pregnancy, you may well end up triggering the bowel movements. Is that what it's called? we have a doctor here, so that's why I'm kind of looking over there. But you know where I'm going with this. This is kind of pretty much, just common sense sort of things, but you want to be careful. Asthma, the same thing. Strong emotional work with asthma patients can trigger a asthma attack. So you want to make sure that they have the medication and that you do not prescribe it. It's up to them to do it, right? And you want to be careful about having too strong emotional reaction with them, because you don't want necessarily to trigger that off. Go ahead.
What if something happens to them during the session? They have a heart attack or something. First of all, do you need to have insurance? Secondly, would you be liable for it?
Well, it depends. If you did something bad, for example, someone with a heart attack, and you send them to the worst experience they had in their life, you may well be liable for it because you created the context that triggered the heart attack without any, shall we say, without any kind of common sense in what you're doing. If, on the other hand, they don't tell you about a heart condition, then it's their mistake for not actually informing you, because you need to tell them, you need to know what all this information is. And if they don't give you the information, then you don't work with them. If they don't fill the intake form out, then do not work with the person. Secondly, all of you should get liability insurance, professional liability insurance, for two reasons again. Especially in America, someone's going to want to think, oh, this guy's successful, let's take a pop. Not a good idea. Secondly, purely for your physical premises, if someone slips and breaks something, again, chances are you could be liable for that, and you want insurance to cover just that physical aspect, the mechanical aspect of running a business, and that's true no matter what business you run. Thirdly, you want to have professional liability insurance in case something like that happens, in the sense you make a mistake that the other person thinks you shouldn't have made, and they consider they've been damaged in some way, then just having the liability insurance is great, because you know that you have a legal fund that's going to take care of you. So it's absolutely right thing to do. And it's pretty cheap, apparently. In the UK, it's very cheap. In the US, I don't know so much. I'm not used to the system here. But as far as I can tell, it's not that expensive, like $100 or something like that a year, or $200, I don't know.
If you join one of the hypnosis professional organizations, you get a discount.
There you go. So there's various organizations that if you join them, they have their own thing. Check them out and have a look yourself. But do get professional liability insurance. It's very, very important. Okay? One question over here.
In some states, they have the Confidentiality Act. So you're saying that when we get some information, we can send it out to, they have to really check that out, because they can sue you right there for giving out information that they were even in your office.
So these are basic things you do for no matter what business you run. I can't give you legal advice. I'm not a US lawyer. I'm not a lawyer in most of the jurisdictions you guys end up being in. My recommendation is find a lawyer get a legal friend to give you some advice, find a lawyer to actually give you some advice. Just find out what you need to do in order to be able to do your work, right? Do you need some kind of license? Do you need some kind of stamp of approval? Do you need some kind of special insurance? Do you need to have some, release forms when the patients come in? I can't tell you what that is. Just go and find out locally, and there'll be lawyers that will specialize in that sort of thing. You can find that out. And some hypnotherapy associations have that advice also available to them.
The NGH.
Yeah.
NGH.net.
Just check the website out. If anyone has any questions, you can talk to me afterwards. This is not a big thing in the sense of where you go. Just find information out and educate yourselves and begin your practice this way.
What about as far as laws pertaining to touching your client? Does that vary state to state, or is it legal in America? Or
well, I think a law about touching people in general would be really messed up, but that's just my opinion. Unless it's just the whole sexual misconduct thing. Again, I'm not legal. I can't give you legal advice. You have to check in your local state and just literally just go to a lawyer, say, here's $100. I'm thinking of setting up this business, and what do I need to know? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how much. All right, guys, settle down. I honestly don't know how much your local jurisdiction costs. You need to sort that. You need to really find out, because each state will be different, each country will be different, each place will be different, and I can't give 100 different answers. A, because I'd be giving legal advice and I go through jail for that. B, I'd be lying to you because I have no idea. And C, you need to find out for yourself. This is just no matter what business you want to go into, you have to find out for yourself. So, this is part of your responsibility as a hypnotherapist, right?
Again, I'll go back to the intake form. If you feel like there's going to be any legal liability with anything, put it on there and get their permission and have them sign it. That covers it, everything. That way you don't even have to worry about it.
Very quickly here, and then we'll move on.
I've got a question on ethics before you even see the person. Today someone comes to you and says, I want to do a weight loss program, and you can see that they're as thin as can be and don't need to lose weight. You've got three choices. One, say, no, I won't see you because you don't need to lose weight. Mm-hmm. Two, see them anyway. Or three, see them but change their perception that they're not fat. Which way would you go?
I think 2 and 3 are, in my opinion, both unethical, because you're doing stuff that you haven't been asked to do. And that's actually a violation of their life, really, because you're making stuff happen for them which they specifically asked you, if not to. Right? They said, I want to lose weight or nothing else. So first of all, one, I think it's pretty ethical, saying, I'm sorry, I can't work with you on that. What I would do, very simply turn around and say, okay, well, why do you want to lose weight? What is it that would give you? In other words, what's the big goal? And we have a big goal like, well, I'd feel, sexy walking down the road. I say, well, how about we work on, how sexy you are and how you move and all that sort of stuff, and let your body acclimatize and find the right way of getting there. So I'm creating a new frame for them. If they agree to that, that's good work you can do. If they don't, I will just say, I'm sorry, I can't work with that. Because it would not be ethical to make, it's actually in nothing else, in terms of ethics and in terms of personal liability, both bad things. I mean, guys, this is basically common sense, right? Hopefully I'm not saying anything you guys don't already know, so I shouldn't be the source of all knowledge for you guys. This is stuff that you can work out for yourself. I'm just pointing out some things that you need to consider and work out, and that's something that you have to sit down and do. It's your responsibility. If I start giving a long checklist of everything you need to do, well then, if something's missing, you can just go, oh, but you didn't say about so-and-so. Inform yourself, use your common sense, and you'll be okay. But do inform yourself, do get legal advice, and the rest will be, as you go through life. Go ahead.
Sometimes you'll run into the situation where somebody puts the reason that they're there or what they want to work on the intake form, not knowing that somebody, or thinking somebody else in the office might see it, not realizing it's going to be you. Then when you get it back in the office, they change it.
Just explain it. Seriously, just explain it. If they change it, then change it with them. That's fine, right? This is just for your records, really. And, if they change it, again, just use your common sense. As something happens, things will always come across. You can always come across things that will knock you for 6, in which case, just adapt and learn from it and move on. I cannot literally give you the whole list of everything that might possibly happen. You guys are smart enough to work this out for yourself, right? But just go through the intake form, and that's going to give you a lot of information. It's going to give you a lot of important steps to go through. Remember, you do not work on certain conditions without a medical referral. Those are on page 72. We just talked about them. Heart condition, pregnancy, things like that. You want to see the letter from the doctor giving the referral, not just like, yeah, the doctor checked me out, it's okay. Get the letter from the doctor. Better still, actually write to the doctor yourself, with the client's permission, or with the client's permission, so you can get it directly, so that you know that this is done well. Protect yourself, and this is just good practice procedure. Make sense? Okay, so you've done the intake form, you've given the pre-talk, you've set up the expectation, you've set scope for the whole trance process. In other words, from time to time I have to touch you on the shoulder. Is that okay? You've done the whole, what's the problem? Read it. What's the problem? When, where do you do it? You have the parameters of where are they now, where they want to go. So now it's time to actually do the work. That's really what they've come to see you for, right? At this point, depending on what kind of thing you're doing, I would start either with the blitz, particularly if you're doing coaching rather than hypnotherapy, or dive straight into the mind-bending language. Why? Because they'll typically give you whatever ideas you need in the problem to start the whole mind-bending language loop already, right? Sometimes if there's a really strong emotion, I'll just skip the first two and go straight to the regression because it's already live and ready to go. But really, the process is a linear process. Start with one, and as Gloria mentioned, if the person keeps giving you reasons and intellectual things why it might not be working, use that as your mind-bending language loops. That already sets the process going. If a strong emotion flares up, which is blocking that process, then you can either use more language loops to get through that, which you can do, by the way, or, if you prefer, go for a full regression, and you're done. That's the whole thing, right? At the end of your session, I like to spend a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, just reinforcing what's going on with a nice, strong hypnotic blitz on self-esteem and their outcome, using your power words and the trance themes about the stuff they were asking about. Does that make sense? And really, once you've done the work, once you've tested it, once you've conditioned it, once you've given a nice strength blitz, you've done your boilerplate 2, which is like every time you go into trance, you'll come back, you go back into this place more deeply, more quickly. And you've done some self-esteem stuff as well. You bring them back, then you don't look at them and go, did that work for you? You look at them with confidence and say, you did great. Compliment them, because they don't know. Compliment them, and then you can probably launch into a nice conversational blitz again, looking at them saying, you did great, you're going to feel really fantastic when you leave there, your life is going to improve so much more, you're going to really enjoy the way that your body shifts and changes your relationship to your weight, yada, yada, yada. You're basically redoing the whole blitz again for maybe a couple of minutes, because you're using the double dip phenomenon, right? At that point, you're pretty much done, right? You can do some tasks if you're into the whole, between now and next session, where you do a couple of things to prepare and all that sort of stuff. By all means, do that. But that's pretty much the session. When they come back, guess what you do? Exactly the same thing again. Why? Because the patterns take care of pretty much anything that can come in, and you just follow the sequence. Does that make sense? Does that seem like something you can do now? Can you see yourself shaking the client's hand and doing all this sort of stuff? Going through the process, at the end of which they glow like a light bulb, you send them out in the world to bring light and happiness. Go ahead, Susan. Can we have a microphone up here?
I'm curious as to how this really works with someone who has a physical addiction. Smoking comes to mind right away.
Sure.
So, to send them out the door and say, go have a good life as a non-smoker, amen. I'm having problems with that.
How specifically? Well, that's what they came for.
They are addicted to nicotine.
They were addicted.
They were addicted to nicotine, and nicotine is a very powerful addictive drug.
Okay, so now you're doing a nice, interesting hypnosis thing with yourself. My experience with smokers is twofold. One is the ones that get so elated what they're doing that the elation, which lasts like the euphoria, which lasts like maybe a week or two, masks any pangs they end up having. They come back, or I got them to write me letters every week to let me know how they're doing. And then I'm saying, like, this is fantastic, nothing, no pangs at all, no withdrawal symptoms. I'm having a great time, right? Hey, and they're addicted to nicotine as well, and some of these have spoken 20 or 30, whatever. The other version is sometimes they do get some pangs, and then I give them recovery strategies. And that was part of the therapy session. I give them, and this is part of the How to Make a Lot of Money masterclass, I give them specific little tools they can add into it in case something does happen to kind of get their mind out. It's kind of like a version of how to do mind-bending language on yourself, and I show that on the masterclass. So, this is what I mean by tasking. You can give people other tools. I'm just giving you the framework of the things they're doing, right? And if you really test, then you'll be testing for things that you can expect to happen. For example, what if you get a craving, right? How do they deal with that? What you're looking for is for them to be resourceful during a craving so they don't take what they would not otherwise have taken, right? And, the power of suggestion does a lot of things. The power of suggestion can literally cause the body to create this morphine as much, to as high a level as the drug administration would give you. And you go to a hospital and they pump you full so you can have surgery or whatever it is. The body can do that anyway. So the body can do that. It can mask the symptoms of any addiction quite happily if the suggestion is there and the suggestion takes. So by all means, put in little safety statements, give them little devices they can do in case something does happen. But as a rule of thumb, create the suggestion so they don't need to have that experience in the first place. Does that make sense? Okay, go ahead. Can we have a microphone over here? And another one next to him.
I'm just curious if you think this is true for something like smoking. I noticed with the seemingly insignificant, formerly mentioned BlackBerry fear, the 2 times yesterday that I actually ate these berries in the morning and also last night at dinner, I felt myself almost doing the opposite of how you fall into a phobic reaction like that, because I was learning and having the experiences of not doing it. So while it may seem like you can have a hypnosis session and cure somebody of smoking, it seems like it's really only cemented each time they don't smoke and they start learning what it's like to not smoke.
Yes, and this is why it's so important to the conditioning cycles in the first place, because you want them to have enough reference experiences before they reach the outside world to know what to do when it actually happens. But you're quite right. The longer they're a non-smoker, the better they'll be at not smoking, because they have more reference experiences and more strategies for naturally saying no, like every other non-smoker has. So you're absolutely right.
So the testing and conditioning is sort
why
of
it's so important.
It's a hypnotic way of basically giving them the first 3 or 4 examples of that.
Yeah, well, if there's any doubt, do 20 examples. Seriously. Sometimes I've done work in 10 minutes or so and spend like 40 minutes just doing test cycle, test cycle, test cycle, test cycle, test cycle, one after the other. That's really what the hypnotic blitz is in many ways. The hypnotic blitz is like a test cycle, only you're giving them suggestion of how they'll be anyway. But then you're running through 1 situation, 2 situations, 3 situations, 4 situations, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So they're packing their mind with reference experiences. So when they hit the situations, it's like, oh, this is familiar territory. That's what testing is all about. Absolutely right.
Just one more comment I was thinking of earlier, but it fits into this. I'm noticing as I think about these different techniques now, whereas in the first couple of days I was referencing what I read and what you taught and what I was remembering of the material, now I'm sort of subconsciously referencing my experiences of having done it. And I assume that as you do hypnosis more and more, that becomes easier and easier.
Yep. That's why we had so much time to actually do stuff, because there's no point in you knowing stuff if you can't do it. You're better off doing stuff and figuring out what it was afterwards than knowing stuff and having no idea of how to do it. I like to think you can do both, so you're in exactly the right place. And I hope that most of you are in a similar place, where you now jump back to actual experiences you've had and go, oh, this is what the pattern is, rather than looking at a piece of paper and trying to work out what you actually do. Go ahead.
Just trying to internalize what we've been talking about this week in how you conduct a session. So a person comes in, there's the banter, you find out the problem, the context, the outcome. It seems to me that it naturally flows to some mind-bending language to find out how severe this issue is, and it's some non-awareness set stuff. If it's really deeply rooted, then you do an actual formal trance induction, I think, like a regression or something where their eyes are closed now and you're really getting them down through a deeper trance to deal with those issues at a, deeper trance-like situation, I guess. That's just the way I'm mapping this out for myself.
Go with it.
How did you do most of your work conversationally with the clients wide open, or did you always go to a closed eye trance?
Well, first of all, I did a lot of wrong things along the way, so I'll try and stick to the things that actually work. Then, secondly, it depends on the context I was in. If I was in a hypnotherapy clinic, I would do some of the open eye conversational hypnosis things to make sure that my work would work better, but I always would do a closed eye hypnosis session, an official hypnosis session, because the clients came for hypnosis and they have to have had it because it's part of the ritual they've come for. In my coaching practice, I very rarely did official hypnosis things because, executives, that's not kind of what they want. Sometimes, after you've built up a relationship over a period of time, they're willing to go out there a little bit and do, more kind of, shall we say, internal work, and that's great, but you've built a relationship at that point already. So I would say it really depends on the context. I like to do I love mind-bending language because, my aim is to get done before I've started, before they realize I've started, should I say. So then the actual trance process is just a technicality, and that's usually just a blitz to make them feel great about the fact that they've changed, and they go, oh my God, I've changed, but they've already done so, right? In terms of the coaching practice, though, I only do a blitz, should I say a milder form of the blitz to fit the context, and mind-bending language as a way of breaking through anything that you need to break through on, and storytelling. Those are the three key elements I had, plus the whole listening and interaction thing. So you have to fit it to what you're doing. Does that kind of answer your question? And each one of you will find your own way of working. I like what you were saying there, just because I haven't worked that way, but I can see it working great. So you're already making these patterns your own. All we've done is we've set up a sequence, you understand the sequence, giving you experiences, you know what each one does, and then a way of realizing how one triggers the next thing. Then you can do however way you want to. Absolutely. I think it's great. You should make it your own. Go ahead, Donald.
Just was sitting here thinking about multiple sessions. So everything that we've been talking about so far is under the assumption that this is the first time you're going to have success in your first session. But how do you determine when it's going to have to require multiple sessions in order to tackle the problem?
Here's basically how you find out. It all comes to a test cycle. They come in with a bigger problem, shall we say, and let's say it's like Lenny's fainting response to blood, right? So you end up falling into a regression, say, because you try other things, but it ends up being a regression. You clean it up, come back, great. Now you do the test cycle, and it turns out that she has another memory, and that's still not quite clear. So it's worked up to a point, but something else happened. Like remember she had that tension thing in the stomach as well. There's something else that needs to happen as well. Or let's say that it took such a long time to get the emotional release that you didn't get the whole forgiveness and integration stage, right? And she hasn't, and either for time or maybe it's just such an emotional thing. You think that they just need a break to recover a little bit before they come back and do something else again. At that point, you create a holding pattern saying, okay, great, we're going to continue this another time. So now do whatever you need to do so that you can continue this process inside yourself. And in a moment when we count from 1 to 5, you can come back refreshed, relaxed, alert, something fantastic, knowing that this process will continue in the back of your mind as you live a normal, healthy life. And the next session will continue and clear that up. And that way you can take something big and chunk it down and clean up this bit and then this bit and then this bit until it's all done. So essentially what we did with Lenny was that process, only because it happened more quickly for us, I could do them both in one session rather than have to split both apart and do them in separate sessions. Does that make sense?
I couldn't process all of that, but I think I understand what you're saying.
It's basically, the experience will be your guide, and the key things you look for are, can they do all of it in one go, or do you need to break it up into little bite-sized pieces, and each one of those bite-sized pieces is a session. Right?
Right. I was, as you were talking to other people, I was thinking about the initial phone consultation, and that could serve as a great screening process to kind of determine if you might have to have multiple sessions with someone.
Sure. I mean,
If it's weight loss or smoking or something like that.
Smoking is a one-session thing usually. But if the person, say, like really depressed and like their life is totally falling apart, then I suspect that one session won't be what you'll be doing, right? You may do a significant amount of work in one session, and you might want to do another session to boost their self-esteem, another session for them to get creative about their future, yet another session about getting motivated to actually do certain things they need to do. So that's like a 4-session program, and it creates itself if you think about where are they now, where they want to be, how much effort does it take to go from one to the other, and this is where you can be quite linear about it. How can I chunk it up so that each little piece sets up the next piece? And then you just go with what the session gives you. Now, if you work really fast, you might be able to do 2 of your stages or 3 of your stages all in one day. And if they work really slow, you have to break up one of the sessions you had planned into 2 or maybe even 3, just because that person processes it more slowly, and then you deal with that. As a rule, the things I've seen, and most of the things that people come to you, you can deal with in between 1 and 3 sessions. Except for the guy who was diagnosed with pseudo-schizophrenia, and my coaching practice, which is a separate model anyway, I've never seen someone more than 3 times, as a rule. And I'm not saying that as like this is the ultimate in therapy and stuff like that, because I recognize there are some things that take more time, and you really do want to come back and really build up. For example, if someone came to me for some like abuse, or like sexual abuse in particular, sure, you might clean up the emotional element in one session, but then I would probably want to see them to really build their self-esteem, like a couple of days after, then a week after, then another week after, then maybe 2 weeks after that, then maybe 3 weeks after that, then maybe a month after that. So you're constantly reinforcing the whole self-esteem aspect. So it's basically the same session, but it becomes like a top-up to basically make up for a lifetime of missed experiences, right? And again, that's part of where experience will count.
So basically, you don't want to see them, as your rule, you'll see them 3 times, like for one issue. But after you resolve that, then if they want to come back for something else, then we're good to go.
Exactly. My aim is to get done in one session. My aim is to get done in one session, and I recognize that sometimes for some people and some issues, it requires a little bit longer. I happen to believe that unless it's a really, really big thing, if you can't do it in 3 sessions, and I am the one who's made a mistake, and I better refer them on because I'm not doing something right. That's my general assumption. I don't know if it's right, but that's kind of my general assumption. But then I recognize there are some things like the pseudo-schizophrenic that 3 sessions definitely would not be the right amount. Last question, because we're on to a break now.
Okay, hopefully this is simple. On the regression, if someone goes back to a very early memory, like right away, do you assume that there's like going to be an earlier one and try to bounce them back anyway, or if it's already very early, do you just work with that?
Bounce them back anyway, because you never know, right? They may go back to 5 years old, but the real thing happened when they were 4. So bounce them back anyway. At worst, what will happen is they'll go right back to the same memory again, in which case you're done. So you're not saying basically go back, just like go back to the first time you experienced this, right? And I'll go back a bit further. All right, now go further back to the first time you've experienced this. And then you go back to the same experience. That's a hint that probably it's the right one. And it's never 100%. We saw with Lenny, right? We went back. It was first time. It was within the range, which is basically 0 to 8 years old, and something else came up afterwards. So typically it'll come back in the test cycle, or they'll call you up a few days later saying, I had this sudden memory of something that happened to me when I was, later on, earlier on or whatever, and then this came up, and they say, well, come on in and we'll deal with that too. So either way, they'll tell you where to go.